Tonight, let me tell you the story of Artemis, a goddess often remembered as a huntress beneath the silver moon. Yet on a gentle night in Greece, she was not carrying her bow to strike. Instead, she moved softly through the grove, her steps so light that even the fallen leaves seemed to hush. It is said that the moon followed her, filtering through branches, casting silver threads upon the forest floor. In this story, her arrows remain at rest, and what we find instead is the quiet heart of a guardian, a figure who brought comfort to even the smallest of creatures. Imagine the forest as it might have been, a brook flowing like liquid glass, owls calling in the distance, the air rich with pine and night flowers. It is here, under the shelter of leaves, that Artemis met a frightened fawn. The tale begins with stillness. A young artisan had walked from his village, his hands stained with dye from weaving ribbons for a festival. He had wandered into the woods for inspiration, hoping to see how moonlight changed the colors of petals and bark. As he stood by the stream, he heard a faint rustle, not threatening, but trembling. From behind a cluster of ferns emerged the fawn, its legs unsteady, its sides rising with quick breaths. The artisan froze, knowing that sudden movement might startle it. But before he could even step back, another presence entered the clearing. A glow, not of torches, but of living moonlight, settled on the ground, and Artemis appeared, as quiet as a breath drawn before song. In most stories, Artemis is fierce, chasing stags or punishing those who cross her path. But here, she knelt down, her hand open, palm facing upward, as if offering nothing but calm. The fawn did not flee. It stepped closer, nuzzling her fingers, finding warmth in the cool air. The artisan, watching from the shadows, felt as if he had intruded upon a secret, not one of violence, but of protection. He whispered to himself that the forest was safer than he had ever known. Later, villagers would speak of this night, saying that even the owls turned their heads in reverence, that the brook itself slowed to listen. Why did such a tale endure? In one telling, people say that Artemis was not simply the huntress, but also the guardian of wild things, especially the young and vulnerable. Some shrines dedicated to her carried offerings not of weapons, but of woven cradles and soft cloths, tokens of her gentleness. In some regions, mothers prayed to her not for victory in the hunt, but for the safe growth of children. The fawn in the story became a symbol, reminding listeners that strength is not only measured by power to harm, but also by the choice to protect. The artisan, returning home, could not forget what he had seen. His ribbons took on new colors, soft browns, pale silvers, and shades of green that seemed alive. At the bee festival, when villagers asked why his work felt different, he spoke carefully. "Because I saw how the goddess rests with her forest, how fear itself was hushed." They nodded, though some doubted. Myths always have doubters. But the story spread, woven into lullabies sung by mothers and repeated by elders near firesides. The forest became less a place of shadows and more a place of trust. Another version says the fawn was not merely lost, but had strayed from its mother during a storm. In that telling, Artemis guided it back to safety, her silver glow leading both creatures across the rain-dark grove. The imagery of a divine lantern became part of nightly prayers. Sailors at sea compared the moonlight on the waves to Artemis's lantern, believing it could guide them home just as she guided the fawn. Thus, the myth stretched beyond the forest, reaching the waters, connecting those on land and those adrift on the sea. As you listen now, imagine yourself under that same soft moon, the rustling of leaves above, the gentle hush of a brook nearby. The fears of the day settle down. Like the fawn, you may feel unsteady, but there is a calm presence waiting to soothe you. In the stillness, Artemis remains, not demanding, not striking, but keeping watch. Some storytellers say that whenever a traveler rests beneath the trees, the faint glow they see in the corner of their eye is her reminder. You are not alone in the night. Scholars sometimes debate whether Artemis was more honored as hunter or as protector. In temples across Greece, offerings varied. At Broran, girls left garments to mark their passage into womanhood, trusting Artemis as a guide through fragile years. Elsewhere, hunters prayed for speed and accuracy. Yet in this gentle story, the scales tip toward care. The fawn is not prey, it is companion. The forest is not an arena, it is sanctuary. By weaving both images, worshippers held a goddess both fierce and tender, reflecting the truth that life itself is both harsh and soft. The artisan's account does not end in grandeur. He did not claim divine favor or miracles. He simply spoke of a night when the forest seemed to breathe with ease. That was enough. Sometimes myths endure not because of thunderous deeds, but because of quiet ones. In his memory, the trembling of the fawn became the turning point, from fear to trust, from restlessness to peace. That shift, small and almost hidden, was what people needed to hear when their own nights grew long. And so, Part 1 closes not with a battle or a punishment, but with a moment of stillness. A frightened creature found calm. A goddess known for arrows became known for an open hand, and a traveler returned with colors of peace. As the villagers slept that night, they carried the assurance that even in the deepest forest, there could be shelter. Let the same thought rest with you now, like a soft lantern glow against the dark. The story drifts onward like the brook itself, moving gently from one pool of thought to another. The artisan's tale became part of the village memory, repeated each season as the moon traced its silver arc. In quiet evenings, elders would gather the young by the fire and say, "Not every arrow finds a mark in flesh, some are shot into silence, and that silence is the truest gift." They spoke of Artemis not as distant and unyielding, but as one who bent close, listening to the smallest cry in the grove. When children stirred in their sleep, their parents would murmur, "Hush, she is near." And the thought alone brought comfort. The frightened fawn lived on not only in memory, but in the gentle customs of the people. One healer in the village took the story deeply to heart. She tended to the sick with herbs steeped in moonlight, believing that Artemis's soft glow was part of every leaf and petal. In her small hut, patients lay on mats woven with the artisan's ribbons, now faded, but still carrying the memory of that night. She would whisper as she ground, "Roots and blossoms. Strength is not sharpness. It is care that does not fail." Some who recovered swore that they felt as if they too had rested in the grove, lulled by rustling leaves and the slow rhythm of an unseen heart. Whether it was the herbs or the words, or simply the faith in a goddess who cradled a fawn, they could not say, but healing came quietly, like dawn. In another variation, the story took a wider turn. Sailors, as they set out across open water, recalled the tale of Artemis guiding the fawn. They said that the moon was her torch, and the stars her scattered arrows not of harm, but of light. They trusted those arrows to mark paths home. When a boat drifted too far, the navigator might murmur, "Follow the silver bow above." To them, Artemis was not only goddess of groves, but of return. The fawn's trembling became the sailor's fear, and the goddess's hand became the calm that guided them back. Thus, the myth wove itself into waves as easily as it had into leaves. Investigators of myth often ask, was Artemis primarily a huntress, or was she equally cherished as a guardian? Evidence lies in the rituals of Broran, where young girls played at being bear cubs, symbols of youth protected under her gaze. In some ceremonies, little ones wore masks and danced in circles, reenacting the safety of being sheltered. No blood was spilled in these rites, only laughter and rhythm. The bear cubs and the fawn were kin in symbolism, reminders that even the wild has tender beginnings. To explore such variations is to see how myth is not one fixed stone, but a weaving of many threads, each glimmering when turned toward the fire. The artisan himself aged, as all do. In his later years, when his hands shook too much to dye fabric, he still told the story of that night. His voice thinned, but the weight of memory gave it strength. "I thought the forest was a place to fear," he confessed, "but I found it was a place where fear itself could be calmed." Children leaned closer, their eyes reflecting flame and wonder. Some claimed they could almost hear the brook, as he spoke, almost see the faint silver light between rafters. Even when they knew the tale by heart, they asked for it again, because hearing it was like stepping into shade on a hot day or into warmth on a cold one. Repetition itself was comfort, as steady as the goddess's step. One quiet evening, as the healer and the artisan sat together, they wondered aloud about symbols. Why a fawn? Why not a bird, or a hare, or some other fragile creature? The healer answered slowly, "Because the fawn stands between weakness and strength. It has legs that will one day leap, but for now, it trembles. Artemis showed us that in the moment before strength, tenderness must carry us." The artisan nodded, his eyes closing as if already in dream. In that interpretation, the myth became a lesson not only about divine gentleness, but about patience with the becoming of life. Another branch of the story said that the fawn, after being comforted, never again feared the forest. It grew strong, leading its herd, guiding younger deer to water. Villagers who saw it spoke of its calmness, saying it had inherited something of the goddess herself. Thus, the act of gentle care did not end in the moment. It continued through generations of creatures. And so too with people. Kindness shown once can ripple outward, remembered in actions, not just in words. Each listener who carried the tale carried also the invitation to gentleness. The forest itself became part of the myth. Some travelers claimed that on nights when the moon shone brightest, the grove where Artemis appeared seemed unusually still, as though waiting. Birds hushed, streams slowed, and a faint breeze circled. These travelers returned saying, "There is a place where peace itself gathers." Whether or not they saw the goddess, they felt something beyond the ordinary. And so pilgrims walked to that grove, not to hunt, but to sit. They left no marks, no offerings beyond silence. Their gift was listening, and they said the forest accepted it. When we listen to such a story today, it may feel distant from our lives of roads and walls and lamps. Yet the essence remains close. To be the artisan, the healer, the sailor, or even the fawn is to know moments of trembling, of searching for safety. To imagine Artemis kneeling, her hand open, is to remind ourselves that strength does not have to be harsh. It can be presence, stillness, the courage to stay when another quivers. That is why the myth endures. Because in the fragile spaces of life, we wish to believe in a guardian who leans close. And so part 2 rests here, in a village warmed by firelight, in a forest hushed by moonlight, in a heart steadied by story. The artisan grows old, the healer hums her chants, the sailors trace stars, the children sleep to lullabies, and the fawn grows strong. Across each version, across each telling, the shape of the myth remains. Fear, answered by tenderness, trembling met with calm. May that shape fold around you tonight, like branches meeting overhead, reminding you that rest is safe and the night is kind. The years turned, and with them the myth deepened like roots beneath soil. Children who had once listened wide-eyed by the fire grew into elders themselves. They carried the memory not as a sharp tale of punishment, but as a lullaby of calmness, repeating it when storms rattled doors or when journeys felt long. One traveler, weary from months of trade, recalled hearing it in a distant port. A local storyteller, sitting on smooth stones by the shore, told of Artemis and the fawn as though the forest had always been near, even with waves crashing beside them. The traveler, far from home, felt suddenly at rest, for he realized that stories travel like seeds in the wind, planting comfort wherever they land. In one gentle retelling, the fawn itself becomes a dream figure. People said that if a child stirred at night, restless and afraid, the fawn would appear in sleep, leading them toward a meadow lit by Artemis's lantern glow. There, the goddess watched over them until the first pale thread of dawn. When the child woke, calm replaced fear, as if the dream had stitched peace into their heart. Parents smiled at this thought, finding ease in the belief that even sleep was a forest where guardians walked. Scholars who sift through fragments of hymns note that Artemis was called Kuratrophos, nurturer of youth, a title that aligns more with this quiet myth than with hunting. Inscriptions found near sanctuaries bear dedications asking for safe births, healthy growth, and the guarding of animals. Some argue that the bow in her hand was always double-edged. Yes, an instrument of the chase, but also a symbol of protection, able to strike threats before they reach the vulnerable. The myth of the fawn crystallizes this protective side, a reminder that strength and gentleness need not stand apart. The healer of the village, in her last season, passed the story to her granddaughter, saying, "Remember that gentleness lasts longer than sharpness." She pressed into the girl's palm a ribbon dyed long ago by the artisan, now frayed but still soft. That ribbon became a family token worn by brides, tucked into cradles, tied to walking staffs. In this way, the myth did not remain only in words but in touch, in fabric against skin. The goddess's hand was remembered in every knot and fold. Some evenings, groups would walk to the grove itself, carrying no torches, letting moonlight be their guide. They would sit in circles, listening to night sounds, practicing silence. Children fidgeted at first, but soon they felt the rhythm of leaves moving above them, the pulse of earth beneath. In that hush, they understood what the artisan had seen, the forest as a place where fear itself could loosen and slip away. Each visit ended with a sigh of release, as if the whole village exhaled together. No grand rituals, no carved monuments, just shared stillness under Artemis's sky. When we reflect now, we may wonder what the story teaches us in our own restless nights. Perhaps it reminds us that the most lasting power is not the arrow that flies, but the hand that steadies. That trembling is part of growth, and to soothe another's, trembling is to share in their becoming. That nature itself, so often feared, can cradle us if we listen gently. The fawn's fear was answered not by force, but by presence, and that presence echoed across generations. Some storytellers end with the fawn grown, its steps sure, its herd safe. Others say Artemis still walks the grove, every rustle of leaves a sign of her nearness. And some whisper that each moonbeam touching earth is her hand extended, calming not only deer but also the hearts of those who gaze upward. However it is told, the lesson remains. Gentleness is not weakness, it is another name for strength. So let the image linger with you now. A quiet forest, a brook glimmering, an owl calling once in the distance, and Artemis kneeling, her palm open, the fawn leaning into her touch. Let that image carry you toward rest, for like the artisan returning with softer colors, you too can carry gentleness into the world. And like the sailor trusting the silver bow of the sky, you too can find your way home by following the glow of care. In closing, think of how myths survive not through thunder, but through whispers. Tonight's whisper tells us that even the fiercest figure has a hidden softness, and that hidden softness is what lulls us to peace. May the grove be with you. May the moon guard you. May the gentle guardian of the forest remind you that you are safe. Thank you for listening to this story of Artemis and the fawn, a myth that teaches us that strength can be tender and that rest can be trusted. If you found calm in these words, consider joining again for more tales of night and myth. Until then, sleep well, dream gently, and let the forest of memory cradle you. Good night.